Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. I mentioned the other day that I am planning for our local group, some of the youth, to bring them out, and it's something that I'm working on, okay? Of bringing them out and the woods and teaching them some bushcraft survival skills. So I think I found the place, and I decided today to spend a little time out here walking around and just seeing what's out here that can be used to teach these youngins. You know, this kind of stuff it's actually really important for everyone. I know there are some of you that are preppers that you're all on board with survival bushcraft skills, especially even primitive bushcraft skills. Some of you not so much. Some of you take the path of, utilizing modern technology. And maybe you're more urban, suburban, stuff like that. And there's nothing wrong with either of them, but I would advise everyone to kind of learn this kind of stuff. This area that I'm at, it's in the National Forest. I'm not going to tell you where. I actually I'm on a little trail from where I got off at the road. You couldn't see this. This area, it's not a campground or what a lot of people would go to, like a tourist area type of thing. This is just a big bunch of national forest, and was kind of messing around, and I found what was probably at one time an old logging trail, is what I'm going to assume, because there's nothing marked. This whole area of the forest doesn't really even have any marked trails or anything. It's just a bunch of national forest. And we all should explore any areas that might be like this in our area. Even if it's just big parks, state parks, city parks, we should become somewhat familiar with them and then know how to survive in these areas if we had to. While it's certainly, you can tell no one comes through here. There's a spider web every 2 feet. Just because your plan isn't to necessarily go out and live in this type of environment, it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be part of a contingency plan, even if it's a third or fourth tier contingency plan. Because even though, myself, I'm not a huge advocate of bugging out. I tell people I live at my bug out location. So, my immediate plan is not to bug out. But that doesn't mean that some type of natural disaster couldn't happen. A tornado, a forest fire. Some of you live in areas that could flood, or hurricanes that would cause you to have to evacuate. And if you have to evacuate now or in a time where things are stable, that's one thing. But what happens when a natural disaster happens and it's when the doo-doo's already hit the fan? You may have to have a plan to bug out. Or what if bad people come and there's too many of them and you can't hold your home, you can't hold it down, and you have to leave? Or governments come in to look for you to round people up and quarantine them or whatever. So there are scenarios where you may have to run to a place like this. And so you should find, I know not everyone has them, but a lot of you probably have places that might be kind of like this in your AO. And so you should probably figure that out. Going back to the children, this is actually a pretty long little path through here. Going back to the children, they should learn this kind of stuff. Everyone in the family. Not everyone in the family is going to know how to competently use an AR or anything like that. But most everyone in the family, with the exception of very small children, can learn how to build a fire, learn how to set a broken bone, learn how to help build a little shelter, learn how to set a snare, or lash things together to help make a little usable site. Learn how to just simply walk in the woods, read a compass, find their direction. These kinds of things can be done by young children. I mean, The scouting programs have proven that over the last 100+ years, that young children can learn this kind of stuff too. Learning basic bushcraft survival skills used to be something that was taught to just about any child, especially boys, but just about any child, starting at about the age of 5 or 6 years old. And it's just not done anymore, but we should start doing that. We should be doing that with our children, our families, and finding places like this. And if they're close enough, spending time in them, exploring them, figuring out where, if you had to run to it, would be a good place. Are there caves on it? Are there certain, maybe some natural rock outcroppings? Just where would be a good place to set up camp that's secluded? I mean, you can see from the trees behind me, and I am very deep in the woods. The nearest paved road from me, I'm trying to think, is at least 6 or 7 miles away. And that paved road is way out in the middle of nowhere. I'm a good 25, 30 miles from the nearest town of about 1,500 people. So I'm pretty far out in the middle of nowhere. And this is a very large area, I think, probably total somewhere in the neighborhood of 20,000 acres. This kind of terrain, this type of place can be found often around where you're at. And so I would certainly encourage you to find it, explore it. Of course, you want to be safe. You want to, like where I'm at, there are bears around the area. There's bobcats, there's mountain lions, there's wild hogs. And I am armed and have, first aid kit, survival kit. I'm not wearing my rifle, but I figure it's actually kind of complicated to carry the rifle and the camera, but I'm carrying enough. I even brought my fun stick, so I think we're probably pretty good. And even though those predatory animals do live in this area, there's not a lot of them, so I'm pretty safe and can handle myself. I've done this a lot, so I know that there's going to be many of you saying, "Oh, it's in danger." I do this all the time. It just happens that I found this spot in this national forest that I was not aware of. Going down some old trail, and then found a clearing and started exploring, and then found this little trail. It's not marked on any map or any national forest map, so it's kind of interesting. Back to my point. You need to be finding places like this if they are available. I know that some of you are going to say, "Oh, I don't have anything like that in my area." I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you, but for those that do have it, you need to find it. And when you're exploring and you're doing it safely, of course, you can be learning stuff along the way, teaching your children, like I said, basic skills, how to set up a camp, how to do it safely, because you have to remember, you're not just setting up a camp to go camping. You're setting up a place that needs to also be defensible. So you need to know where the terrain is. Are you on the high ground or the low ground? If you can find an area where the trees are kind of dense and you can use the trees as cover, making sure that, even to the point of, I'm trying to find a good example here, because these are kind of smaller trees, but here's some over here. Even to the extent of, as I'm walking here, a larger tree like this, that's actually a pretty good sized tree, of each person in your group, in your family, having their bivvy on the ground, using that not just to lean against, but also as cover in case bad guys come that way. You've got something to hide behind. You have to do it differently. You have to set things up differently. So you're going to be looking for different kinds of terrain, because you could be in danger. It's not just having fun. But when you're out having fun and learning, you bring your children out. You teach them how to set up a shelter. You teach them how to start fires. You teach them how to do snares. You teach them how to walk quietly. I'm not walking that quietly right now. Partly you hear it because the microphone is pretty sensitive. but also it's kind of hard to walk quietly and pay attention to where you're going and look at the camera. But there are ways to quietly move through the woods. There are ways to, especially many of you hunters know this. If you're a hunter, you know how to kind of move a little bit quieter. To teach them plants around that can be used for medicinal reasons, that can be used as for food. Teaching them how to do first aid in the woods. Teaching them what equipment that they need and how to use it. A lot of people get their children little bug out bags, and that's great. I strongly encourage that. But your children need to know how to use them. You know, they need to get out and know how to use a knife. They need to know how to set up a tent or to, you know, find some kind of cover. They need to know how to do these things. And so I want to encourage you to get your children out and do this kind of stuff and find places. They don't have to be quite as amazing as this. This is actually a pretty good one, but any place like this that you can just get out away from the concrete and steel and learn some basic skills, and you can find them in books. There's all kinds of bushcraft books. You can even find older Boy Scout manuals. I wouldn't get anything newer than 2000 or early 2000s. And just get out and learn stuff. And while you're learning it, you could also be scoping out places that might work if you had to run. That way you know exactly where you're running to, and then figure out ways to get there quickly and easily. Places that if you're in your vehicle, where you would dump your vehicle, and then try to scope out a particular trail. You can even mark your trails. There's ways of marking your own trail so that it's difficult for others to find if it's something specific, so that you only know what you're looking for. There are other things you can do that certainly I'm not advising because they border on the illegal. But when you're on public property like this, you know, some people choose to put caches out here, bury them. Of course, mark where you bury them, that you know how to get there, that you might have supplies stuck out here. Now, if you do that, you always have to know that someone could find them and take them. But it's an option that you could choose to do. The main thing is, though, is getting out here, getting your family out here. I think, and this is my personal opinion, it's probably harder work to get your family out for you as the person, whether you're the husband, wife, mother, father, to get them out and do stuff like this, because you're doing more work. You know, I'm out here and it's very hot. It's 97, 98 degrees today, and I'm pretty much full kitted out. So it's certainly not cool. Bugs everywhere, that kind of stuff. So there's more physical labor to it than it would be just going to a range and shooting. But I think you would have a better chance of getting your whole family involved. For those of you that maybe one of your spouses isn't as much into prepping as you are, you know, maybe it's hard to convince them to do training and stuff. This is something you don't have to call it training. We're gonna go hiking. We're gonna go hiking in the woods because every family likes to go hiking in the woods. Every family likes to explore. And then, of course, you're also learning stuff. Get your families out and doing this, folks, because the biggest thing is it brings you together. Families today are also discombobulated. They're all stuck in their phones, and they're stuck in the TV, and they're stuck in some kind of screen. You know, parents have no clue what the children are doing, and vice versa. There's no connection whatsoever in modern American life. We need to bring that back, where there's a family bond. Because if you're planning on all surviving together, you're going to need that family bond. If none of you and your children can't get along, especially if you have teenagers, what do you think it's going to be like when it all hits the fan? Get out and build family bonds. Teach them basics. Teach them basics of how to survive out here. It'll be fun for them. Most children really take to this kind of life. Oh, they're gonna complain about the heat. They'll complain about the bugs. They'll be worried that they're gonna be bit by a snake or eaten by a bear. And you have to, you know, adjust accordingly to that so that, you know, your children, your family is safe. But in the end, they will probably adapt to this and really enjoy the time that they're spending out in the woods. It's natural for us. It's natural for people to do this. And learning some basics of, you know, what these plants might be able to do for you. You know, which trees are which. Some of them may have food growing on them. Some of them may be better than others to build a makeshift bow. How to erect a natural shelter out here. You've got plenty of big trees, plenty of little trees, make a little lean-to. How to build a fire, how to catch your food, what water sources are out here and how to get them and how to make them drinkable. How to hide from bad guys out like this. All of these things should be taught, because even though your primary plan is not to have to move out like this, most people, some people it is, but most people it's not. It should be in your contingency plans of how to get out like this and how to survive, even if it's for short periods of time. Because of all the things going on, it might be necessary at some point to make a quick evac to out here in the woods and even for a period of time survive. You need to be getting your houses in order, building family closeness, relationship bonds, because when it all comes down to it, your family, and that family may be blood related or not, but your family is about all you're going to have when it comes to physical connections that you can count on. Your family and the Almighty Creator and the Savior. That's about it. So you better make sure you have bonds with that family and know how to do things together, because that may be how you survive all this. Folks, it's time to get your houses in order. It's time to prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next video. I'm actually really liking this place. How secluded it is. You can tell by where I pulled off the road that no one uses this place. I might just bring myself out here more often and explore, because I'm liking what I'm seeing. Thanks for watching. Catch you later.